In the wilds of Pennsylvania, some folk claim you could run across a rare snake. It's sometimes known as a horn snake, but more often goes by the name of hoop snake, so called because of the strange locomotion it utilizes. It is said that the hoop snake will clamp its tail in its mouth and roll, kind of like a bicycle tire. They're also said to be deadly, so if you see one, hide behind a tree.
Hey everyone, Bond here from Dr. Pennsylvania. Today we have episode number 49, Hoop Snakes. It's about hoop snakes. As always, if you like what you hear, please feel free to leave a review and rate us on iTunes. Tell your friends, that's all super helpful. And if you have any thoughts or ideas, let us know on Facebook at Dr. Pennsylvania, or you can always email us at drpennsylvania@gmail.com.
Granted, hoop snakes are a legend not exclusive to Pennsylvania, but their presence is strong here. While a general concept of hoop snake goes back to antiquity, for example, the Ouroboros of ancient Greece, the modern variant is probably best known from the Pecos Bill stories originally published around 1917. The Pecos Bill stories were published by a Texan who claimed to have collected the stories from soldiers and cowboys and that they were part of a larger oral tradition. Just because Pecos Bill's story cemented the image of the hoop snake for many, Pennsylvania's Philip Tome wrote of them in his book Pioneer Life, which we've discussed in previous episodes. Tome's account of the hoop snake predates the Pecos story by 60-some years. I sometimes wonder if Tome believed in the hoop snake or just retold the tale inserting himself in it. Other writers in North America precede Tome. The earliest example I can find comes from Virginia in the form of a letter by John Clayton to the Royal Society of London and goes back to 1688.
There is another sort of deadly snake, the red snake. I once narrowly escaped treading on the back of one of them. They are an ugly dark brown color, inclining to red. Their bellies are of a more dusky white, with a large streak of vermilion red on either side. This, too, is of the viper kind, but it is not so short, but its tail is more taper and small. The horn snake is, as they say, another sort of deadly snake. I never saw any of them unless once shortly after my arrival in that country, which I cannot attest to as being a horn snake, for I did not distinctly view it being in the thicket of a sumac. It was perched up about 2 feet high in a sumac branch, its tail twisted around the shrub, and about a quarter of a yard stood bolt forward, leaning over the forked branch thereof. I could not see the horn with which it strikes, and if it wounds, is as deadly as the rattlesnake bites. The gentleman that was with me told me it was the horn snake, but being in haste and on horseback, and the snake in the thicket, I could not see the horn, but I had thought I should never have seen more of them. I should have took little pains to have been better satisfied. This, I think, may not improperly be referred to as the dart snake.
The myth would evolve over years. The earliest known account I could locate which addresses their rolling method of movement comes from Pennsylvania's Philip Tome, who, again, I had mentioned earlier in his 1854 publication of Pioneer Life. Tome's description of the hoop snake is as follows.
The hoop snake, or horn snake, is very rare. It is about 5 feet long and 1.25 inches in thickness. It is similar in color to a yellow rattlesnake, but with light spots are less dingy. Its tail terminates in a black horn, 4 or 5 inches in length, and very sharp at the point. When preparing to make an attack, it bends itself into a circular form and rolls over the ground like a hoop, striking its spike with great force into the object of its attack. So deadly is the venom contained in this spike or horn that it is fatal even to trees. In one instance in which I was cognizant, one of these snakes rolled at a man who avoided it by stepping to one side, and the snake, being under such velocity could not turn, struck its horn into an elm tree with such force that it could not extricate it. The snake died hanging there in 2 weeks, and the tree was lifeless at the end of a month. Notwithstanding the deadly nature of a rattlesnake's bite, they are easily destroyed by dogs, which have been taught how to attack them. The dog seizes it by the middle, and with a few vigorous shakes, scatters it in fragments. If the dog is bitten, it immediately digs a hole in the ground in which it lies until the swelling disappears. I have found this simple remedy to be the best one which can be resorted to for the bite of a rattlesnake.
Sometimes it's hard to determine if an account of a hoop snake is believed by the author. Some of the earliest accounts from the 17th and 18th centuries were documented by travelers interacting with English colonists. By some of their writing, it is clear that they were documenting local accounts and they believed them to be true. With Tome, was he genuine in his belief of hoop snakes or just inserting himself into the story, or is he in on it being a myth, a tall tale, and just putting his twist on that? Regardless, hoop snakes are one of the most persistent legends in Pennsylvania. Folklore's James York Glim documented tales of hoop snakes in his seminal book of Pennsylvania folklore, Flatlanders and Ridge Runners, as recently as 1983. By this time, the hoop snake was described by those living in north-central Pennsylvania's counties as being about 8 feet long. They were colored green, yellow, or orange shades, but according to the storyteller, their color was often defined by the type of whiskey the witness had been drinking. Just like in Tome's story of the hoop snake, Glim's source speaks about the snake dying when its venomous barb becomes stuck in a piece of wood.
Well, one day this farmer is out hoeing in his field when he looks down a row of corn, and there's one rolling right at him. He's so scared he can't move, and all he's got between him and the snake is that hoe handle. When the hoop snake unrolls and comes flying at him like a spear, the farmer holds up the handle and the barb sticks right in it. Well, the farmer dropped the hoe and just ran on home. He came back around dusk real careful. There was the hoop snake lying dead and its barb still in the hoe handle. Now the poison was all drained out of the snake, but the hoe handle had swelled to the size of a huge log. Farmer hauled the log to the sawmill and had it cut into planks, beams, and boards. Built a whole house out of the wood. Then it rained so hard trout were swimming by the window. The farmer woke up in the morning all wet with no roof over his head. Just a lot of little toothpicks all around him. Seems like that rain had washed all the poison out of those logs. They just shrunk back down to nothing.
And that's the thing about hoop snakes. It seems like the myth has long ago shed a respectable, if far-fetched, likelihood. While there are plenty of ardent believers in Bigfoot-type creatures or even lake monsters, including one in the man-made Raystown Lake in Huntington County, hoop snakes have lost this and are now the focal character in humorous tall tales. Perhaps a snake rolling like an inner tube, killing trees dead, was just too much to buy.